Hello, I'm Ellie Taylor, and this is Back Your Body, the podcast from Holland Barrett that's all about the most loyal relationship you'll ever have. Yep, the one you have with your body. From scars to self-care, the bits you love and the bits you've learned to love, this is a conversation about how you look after your body and how your body looks after you. Now, today's guest is an ex-A&E doctor who first came to public attention on Love Island back in 2018. Since then, he's become one of the UK's leading voices on mental health, speaking openly about his own experiences with OCD and ADHD to help break the stigma. Formerly the UK's Youth Mental Health Ambassador, his work became deeply personal following the loss of his younger brother, and he's on a mission to improve support nationwide, especially for young people. It's Dr. Alex George.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. Now, the most important thing is, Alex, I have to say, yours is the only season of Love Island that I have ever watched in my life.
Really?
That's my benchmark of Love Island, and I thought it was such a brilliant series. I thought, I'm not bothering with that again. Does that feel like a million years ago now?
Well, it's 2018. It's a long time ago. Yeah. Sometimes I forget. Like sometimes people say, and I'm like, oh yeah, I did actually do that. That was me.
Does it feel like you're a different person?
I think, yeah, so much has happened. I mean, so much has happened. I was working in London in Lewisham Hospital in A&E, as you said. Basically, my consultant, when I was asked to go on the show, I didn't apply it. I was asked. I thought it was a joke, to be honest. And I was like, oh, yeah, they asked me to go on the show. I'm not going to an interview or anything because I'm not going to do it. I was just saying it as a joke at the hospital. And my consultant pulled out her water bottle that said her name on it.
Oh, no.
And was like, you're going to that interview. And I was like, fine. And it just happened from there. It was a complete accident. I thought it'd be like 2 weeks and back to work kind of thing. Because I had a break in my contract. Or my contract ended. And then I was going to continue in the hospital. And I was like, fine, it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Turns out probably ADHD was the leading decision into kind of be like, oh, whatever, I'll do it. And everything happened since then. I went back to A&E, carried on working. I was working in the hospital till 2022, so worked the whole pandemic. And I guess, I've always loved education. I like health. I've always actually been quite passionate about mental health for a long time because of my own experiences when I was growing up and struggling. And yeah, it just felt kind of like my calling, especially after losing my brother to suicide a few years ago. It was kind of at the end of the pandemic. And then it was kind of like, well, I've got this following that I have. I'd already been talking about health and mental health funny enough quite a lot. And I just kind of honed in on that. And yeah, was mental health ambassador for 4 years. I managed to raise in total onwards of about £200 million, I think, in the total kind of funds and projects. So I'm quite proud of that. There's a lot of work that I would have loved to have kind of pushed further, but I think it was a good start, a solid start.
That's incredible. Let's take it right back then to you getting into medicine in the first place. Did you always want to be a doctor?
To be honest, yeah, I think I did. To be honest, I don't remember having like a desire to do another career before that. I kind of saw like the early versions of like City Hospital, that kind of stuff, earlier versions of 24 Hours A&E, I guess. Yeah. Before that, 24 Hours A&E, and I just thought it's an amazing way that you can kind of combine like science, which I was always kind of intrigued with. I was always interested in nature and science and the human body and stuff. And I was like, you got that, and then you also have adrenaline. And I look back now and I realized I grew up riding motorbikes. I loved the outdoors. I was climbing trees from like 2 years old. I think obviously I now know I have ADHD. I grew up like that, and I think it was a perfect space to go into. Like A&E is this dopamine-rich environment that actually has a purpose. So since a young age, I kind of was like, this is what I want to do. I think if I wasn't an A&E doctor and I was a bit shorter, I'd have loved to be a Formula One driver.
Right.
Very different career, but lots of dopamine.
Yeah, and split-second decisions.
And fast, yeah. I love that. But family, actually a lot of my family from motor racing background as well. So too tall though. I'm probably not talented enough either. So.
Just blame it on the height. That's fine.
It's got to be the height.
It's interesting you say that ADHD was sort of part of the reason why you went into medicine. Excuse my ignorance about ADHD, but I would think like that it would be really hard to focus on the exams that you need to pass to be able to be a doctor. Well,
it's interesting. So I have ADHD and autism, and that was autism was only recent diagnosis, and I think probably some of it is that. So the autistic brain likes to be perfection and thoroughness and completion, and the ADHD brain will chase novelty. And if you're interested in something, the hyper focus is incredible. So the exams actually I loved, and I always did really well at exams. The bit I struggled with was coursework, and actually your attention when it's on something you're really focused on, or it's very dopamine driven, you can really be very good at that. Whereas stuff that's long format, not so much. So A&E is a brilliant environment, fast paced, lots of moving, solve cases, refer them, discharge them. Surgery, 12-hour operations, I wouldn't be great. You wouldn't want me as your surgeon, but I think I was good at A&E.
Right. And now we were talking before we started recording, you've stepped away from being an on the floor doctor, if that's what you call it in A&E.
Yeah.
So how long were you in A&E for?
So I graduated in 2015. I worked at King's, which is my dream hospital. I've been watching 24 Hours in A&E since it started, really. In the first show, I believe it did start in King's, which is in Denmark Hill in London. And my dream was to work there. So actually, one of the things I did to kind of motivate myself at med school is I printed a picture off of King's and I stuck it on the wall of my room wherever I was, wherever kind of halls was or house was I was living in. And I'd look at that and be like, that's what I'm going for. I believe a lot in visualization and like understanding why you're doing something. And that was really powerful because it really kind of pushed me. And I did get that place. It was one of the most competitive hospitals to get to in the country. I got my place, and it was a really cool moment actually. On one of my first weeks, I got to actually see a patient with a consultant who I'd been watching on the show for many years, and it was kind of a full circle. Like, whoa, I'm dealing with a case with you right now, which is pretty cool. So I worked there. Then I went to Lewisham the next year, found A&E, and stayed there. So a good couple of years. The pandemic was probably the craziest part of it all. We were hit very, very hard in that part of London. And it was a very cruel illness. So that was tough.
Wow. And then now you've moved away from that. Mm-hmm. So you're now at sort of...
I'm non-clinical, So I don't treat people clinically anymore, which is kind of strange sometimes because that's what you kind of train to do. And it's funny, I was looking through my camera roll this morning and I saw this picture of this... a daughter of this man that I treated had knitted me a teddy and put in a frame with thank you, Dr. Alex, and a letter because I'd seen her dad in A&E one night and I'd saved his life, and so she'd written this beautiful letter to thank me. And I think that did bring back that feeling of wow, I don't get to do that anymore. However, I have less closeness to my impact, but I think I have a much broader one. So rather than seeing 10 people in a day, a post that I do about, say, medication and stigma and mental illness, for example, a post I'm putting out tonight, that's probably going to reach between 300,000 and 500,000, maybe more. If it goes viral, it might be 1 million people. So your ability to impact on larger scale is way greater. And so I had a choice to make. I was like, either I have very fine impact, which is incredible and irreplaceable, or I look for breadth. And with the platform I had, it was a no-brainer to do that. And on a personal level, you can't do everything. I was trying to work in A&E, be the mental health ambassador for the government, be in Downing Street, do the Instagram, write books, do all these things. I was burning out. I couldn't continue like that.
And you were talking about how much you love the dopamine hit that you get in A&E. Do you find it can't be the same sort of dopamine hit, sort of the social media stuff, but we all know that social media is known for giving you a dopamine hit. Do you feel like you get the little thrill from that?
Some ways, less so now. I don't attach myself so much to socials as I perhaps used to. I treat it very much. This is my job. It's my profession now, and I run it in that way. I see what I do as purposeful and important. But I have to also think of it as a business. It has to be able to work and operate. I need to run it objectively, even though what we're trying to do is help people. When you do that and run it almost kind of like how charities run things, right? They have to step back a little bit from the front line of what they feel, particularly if you're running that. And that's how I do what I do now. And I think that means that I can actually do a lot more and impact a lot more people, from kind of YouTube to television, books. We've written 6 books now, as well as the various social platforms. It just means that by stepping back a bit, you're not burning out, because that's what I was doing. I was putting everything into can I get this funding, or have I reached enough people with this message, or did I say that right? And you're just really on the forefront of that. And actually it's too much. It's not my job to fix all of mental health. It's not my job to be perfect all the time.
You don't want to ruin your mental health trying to help other people's mental health.
Well, I nearly did. I think I was as you come to the end of, when would it have been? I guess it was 2023. I was really, really struggling. Just 3.5 years ago, I was really, really struggling because I had worked ridiculously hard. My whole existence was working. I'd either work, or if I wasn't working on the weekend, I'd drink. So I was trying to deal, I think, with grief. I wasn't looking after my body at all. At the time, I was nearly 21 stone overweight. And I remember just sitting in my barber's chair one day, and they say, hairdresser, they'll say, what can I do for you today? And I was like, where do you bloody start? Because I was looking in the mirror being like, I'm so lost, not just in how I look physically, but also I just like, I don't know what's going on here, which is unsurprising when you lose a brother to suicide. It's not easy, but everything I was doing was the opposite to health and happiness. So that's taken a few years to unravel. Like I haven't drunk alcohol in 3.5 years. I now exercise, I eat way better. I balance my lifestyle in a much better way. And all of those things have made a huge difference. And part of that has been how I see the work that I do. I think that's really important.
And obviously your role, obviously a lot of the work you do, it focuses on youth mental health. What are the biggest issues you think that are facing young people at the moment?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like broadened over the last year or so because I've kind of I'm trying to take up a lot of topics within the space. But I think my focus for 4 years particularly, and it still is, I write my children's writing and stuff. The reason I focus on that group is because we know that most mental health symptoms for most people start by the age of 25. So most people who go on to suffer even in their 40s or 50s will have had some initial symptoms before that age. So there's a good reason to focus on that age. Secondly, if you kind of support youth mental health and you build mental fitness in that group, you focus on provision, support, education, and many of the factors that contribute to it, like poverty. If you address those issues, you create opportunity for happy, healthy children, not just reducing sickness. And I think sometimes some of the challenges for the NHS is that, it is set up to treat illness, not to propagate health. And that's a very different thing. It's not the same thing, which I think is often confused. Like A&E is to fix your bones or fix your brain when it's really broken, and it's even not designed to do that. It's not to get you healthy. And so that's why I focus on that age group. But there are many challenges. I think, first of all, the world has potentially never been more uncertain. I think things move much faster, like geopolitically, and even the economy just moves so quickly from optimism to challenge. Young people have many more issues in terms of what they see. Growing up, my mum always used to say she would not see anything on the news unless she went to a local, I'm showing her age here, local news agent and bought the paper, which was kind of written over maybe a couple of days and thought through, and there'd be filters to what would be on there. Now a teenage child can see the front line of a war in Iran and the ramifications of things that are happening there at the age of whatever in graphic detail, with no control of how much, how often, or where you see these things. And add to that, obviously, the pressures that social media can add. And it's challenging. The problem is now is that young people's brains are developing, and what they experience and are exposed to throughout childhood shapes quite literally how the brain grows and the actual structure and the way it functions and operates. So if we are not providing, you don't want to cotton wool wrap children, but if you are overexposing them to all sorts of different things that are not helpful to their well-being or even very harmful, that shapes their brains in a way that isn't healthy.
Alex, there's so much going on in your brain and so much that you're thinking about. How do you relax? Do you switch this brain off?
Well, yes, I do. I do have to. I've worked on it over the years, partly why. But so I had a cycle with ADHD over the years. I can actually follow the pattern of like work crazy hard and go crazy, and then collapse and burn out, and then do it all over again, and then collapse and burn out, and then eventually realize it probably wasn't the best way to live and operate. So, I've created much better structure. I work in a 9-to-5 way now. I protect the weekends. In the morning, I go for a walk. In the evening, I go for a walk. So I do what I like to call bookend my day. I start it with movement in nature and I end it with movement in nature.
So are they non-negotiables for you?
I'd say so. I think the walking is probably the biggest non-negotiable. It changed my life. It's why I started the Stompcast, my podcast. Being outdoors in nature is an incredibly powerful tool for healing, for happiness. The science is there for it. And I think I would argue, we as human beings are not meant to sit in boxes all day, isolated away from other people. We should be outside, looking at the birds and the trees. And I live in a city, so I'm finding a park, and there's people going past. How you doing? Say hello to the dog. I've got a dog, so talk obviously says hello to the other dogs. You're not supposed to be sat in a box. Like, get up out of bed, go into another room, have a shower, bite to eat, sit down on a laptop all day. Like, of course, that's going to make you miserable and unhappy. The opposite is being outdoors as much as possible, exercising. All of those things are are the things. I think exercise, moving outside, sleep, eating well, food is definitely a big one for health. All of that actually helps my brain for sure.
Yeah, I think, I mean, that's just the byproduct, isn't it? Sometimes you don't want to work out, but it's good for your body, but it does. It's true what they say, annoyingly. It does make you feel better.
If you were to bottle what exercise gives you, you'd be, if Holland Barrett would bottle the product of exercise, at least what it delivers, then you'd be $1 trillion company overnight, because it's just phenomenal. If you exercise regularly, you live longer. You don't not only live longer, but your quality of life is better. You're less likely to get disease. You're more likely to be productive. You're more likely to be better in relationships. You sleep better, make better decisions, eat better. Everything in your life will improve by exercising.
How has your relationship with your body changed over the years?
Well, I think if you look at it through the realms of exercise, I think when I was younger, I used to buy magazines for like gym exercise, or like a men's health type thing. And you'd see strong guys, and you'd want to look like that. Particularly growing up in West Wales, it was kind of like the big guy, strong guy was the kind of attractive trait. You wanted to grow up to be that. So I think it was very much exercise to look a certain way. The body was an image rather than a functional thing. It was like, I want to be strong to look good. I think Love Island obviously was part of that as well. But after that, I think it's changed a lot. And I still have things that I don't like about my body. I have hang-ups that other people have as well. I don't think you have to pretend that you always love your body, that it's like you always feel really confident. I think it's just actually acknowledging that feeling often comes from other things, like a societal expectation, or it comes from an over, not reliance, like an over focus on how things look rather than how they function. So often if I think, oh gosh, I don't like that, I think, well, actually my body's got me through unbelievable battles and challenges. Actually got me through, I nearly died of sepsis a few years ago, which was a laugh. That was that was on the other side of the coin. It got me through that. It's helped me run a marathon. It has literally allowed me to do everything. Like every cell in your body is working for you, and it's working together, which is a phenomenal thing. So I often just kind of catch that mindset and go, actually, this body's pretty incredible.
And we were talking earlier about your ADHD. When were you diagnosed with that?
I was diagnosed, it was about 4 or 5 years ago. I can't remember the dates now exactly. I'm terrible with the dates. It was like 2022, I think I was diagnosed. 4 years ago, yeah. Because I then quit alcohol just after, 4 years ago.
And how has that diagnosis changed things for you?
I think it changed my life. I think the biggest thing that has altered my life the most was being diagnosed with ADHD. And the best decision I've ever made was quitting alcohol. I think that I can look at it that way. Like, I think there's a big misunderstanding of what ADHD is, so maybe it's worth talking about that.
Absolutely.
So ADHD was coined by this amazing person, and thank you to them, because they obviously recognised the beginnings of what this kind of was. They recognised these traits where these young boys were kind of bouncing around the room, hyperactive, couldn't concentrate. They seemed to have this deficit of attention, and I said, well, actually, that's a group of common symptoms that we're going to name as ADHD. It's like a syndrome, okay? And that's good, but it doesn't really explain what's happening on a physiological level. And it also misses out a huge chunk of the rest of the picture, i.e. women and girls, and also loads of forms of ADHD that are not about bouncing around the room. Now, I was a kid who was like quite naughty at school. Not naughty and rude, I just didn't really want to sit still.
Yeah.
I was very stubborn and strong-minded, which I think was probably the autism. And therefore, perhaps I did appear more kind of up and at it and moving. But loads of people who have ADHD don't have that. The hyperactivity is often internal, can't switch the brain off, thinking too much. It's rejection sensitivity, which is partly how the brain works in someone with ADHD, but also because a child by the age of 5 who has ADHD has 20,000 more negative interactions and comments than a neurotypical child.
Wow.
But it makes sense if you've got, say you've got a brother that's got ADHD and you've got a sister that doesn't. It's like, why can't you be like your sister? Come on, sit still. You're so naughty. You're always a problem. You're this, you're that. Yeah. I had a teacher tell my parents when I was at primary school in front of me, don't expect too much in life of Alex. We need to start lowering the expectations here.
Oh, gosh.
Which is actually really helpful, because it actually made me focus, but it wasn't a nice thing to hear.
Yeah.
So, what I'm trying to say is that what ADHD looks like is very different people. And women often don't present bouncing around the room. But the effects of impulsivity, the effects of a difference of attention, i.e. hyper-focusing on things you want to do with no interest in things that you don't, This and many other symptoms culminate in an experience that can be very challenging if you don't know and don't know how to manage it. Now, many people say, like, are we overdiagnosing? And the other question is, is it just a label? Does it really matter? And I think it's worth looking at through this context. So the average life expectancy of a woman with ADHD who's undiagnosed / more importantly, untreated or unmanaged, I'm not just talking about medication here, has a life expectancy of 7 years less than someone who doesn't have ADHD. So that's, say it's 80, it's 73. That's 7 years is a big old chunk, right? It's nearly 10%. And it's about 5 or 6 years for men. So you literally live a shorter life. People say, why? Many of those reasons relate to the lifestyle that someone live with ADHD. Risk of alcohol misuse disorders up to about 50%.
Wow.
Impulsivity has its own challenges. Risk of not maintaining relationships, workplace issues. But also, if you're not very good at concentrating on the minor details, do you keep up with good exercise and good diet? Do you do the things that help longevity? Do you go to the doctor if there's a mole growing on your arm that most people would recognize and think I need to do something about, but it's not shiny, it's not exciting.
Right.
So it's important in that sense. And just very quickly to say, and I probably should have done it in order, what is actually happening in ADHD is you have a dopamine deficit. It's better thought of as a dopamine deficit disorder. Dopamine's a reward hormone. Dopamine's very important because it makes us feel good. If you finished your day podcasting today, you feel good and positive. You got that clarity, that sense of like, yes, it's a lovely feeling. But if you don't have it, the opposite is feeling rubbish and feeling, oh God, like crap in yourself. You want to feel good. So you start chasing this dopamine. You start looking for it. And all of a sudden, these traits appear.
So since you found out that you have ADHD, how's that changed things? Have you changed anything? Or does it just sort of help you looking back on previous behaviour?
I changed a lot. I think, first of all, I was quite angry and frustrated because I realised that my school experience did not have to be like that. I'm very fortunate. I'm one of the few. Sometimes I think honestly, some of the few that was able to do despite. So when I came to being diagnosed, it was like part of it was acceptance and understanding and like going, okay, all this stuff wasn't my fault. But also a big part was like, oh, like there's stuff that I can do to change this. Alcohol is definitely not a good idea. Let's not do that. The alcohol is not helpful. ADHD especially, get rid of that alcohol. And I was like, suddenly, like, rather than chasing dopamine, let's create gentle dopamine, which is what I search for. So walks in the morning, great for dopamine. Exercise boosts dopamine and keeps it up there. 60 seconds of cold water in a shower. Cold water therapy is actually really good for dopamine.
Oh, right.
Eating protein in the morning rather than eating loads of sugar, because then you don't get dopamine and sugar crashes associated with it. Recognizing, oh, am I doing this impulsively? Like, do I actually want to sign up for another degree, or do I need to buy the 5th motorcycle?
Right.
Or is this an impulse? All of a sudden, you start recognizing what is personality and what is ADHD.
That's so
and you
interesting.
avert so much pain just through that. And even though there are many other things, medication is part of my experience, but even those things can make 50 to 60% difference.
That's clarity to sort of be able to put in your own checks and balances.
And other people understand as well. If other people start understanding you and how you are, and even in your own life, you can go, as someone that knows they have ADHD, does it make sense to work in an office 9 to 5 where I can't move, can't be outside? Or maybe I should use the skill set, because there are brilliant skills that come with it. We do have outside the box thinking. We do have that part of our brain that kind of looks at the world in a different way. It's so helpful. Let's put it into action. It's why for companies and organizations, it's like utilize your 15% of the population are neurodivergent. 5 to 6% of that, about half of them are ADHD. Whether ADHD, dyslexia, autism, or otherwise, there's brilliant traits you can utilize. I mean, autistic people are very common within medicine. Brilliant. That's a real attribute for medicine. Lots of autistic people are lawyers and police. Again, that kind of thoroughness, that kind of sense of completion on approach to tasks is fantastic. So support these people, but also utilize them within your organisation.
It feels like the conversation is beginning to shift in that way in regards to neurodiversity, because it's always just been, it's sort of seen as a cloud, and then it's sort of now people are talking about the benefits and the skills that neurodiverse people have and what they can offer.
Yeah, it's often right person, wrong place.
Right.
For example, and often the ADHD brain is taught as a hunter-gatherer's brain, which was very useful in the day of the hunter-gatherers, but locked in a box like we are now, it's a bigger problem. So people say, why are we seeing more of it now? Is it a new problem? No, just modern life brings it out more. Like, think of mobile phones, think of the work, think of the overstimulation of the world. There's no wonder that people who perhaps 80 years ago would have had ADHD but not been so obvious because they'd have spent loads of times outside. Parents would have chucked them out the house to play. Like, they didn't have mobile phones. So it wasn't brought to the forefront now, but modern life brings it out more almost. And also awareness. Like I always say, like, awareness equals assessments. The more that people feel seen, the more that they step forward and say, hang on, like, I'm 40 and like it now makes sense that I've had 3 marriages and could never keep down a job and struggle with alcohol, whatever it might be. It's actually because I've got ADHD. And when you deal with that and look at the core root of what's happening, all of a sudden everything else changes.
Alex, this is so interesting. Oh my God, I could chat all day.
Thank you.
Okay, each episode we hear from a very lovely and highly knowledgeable Holland Barrett science specialist. And today it's Patielle telling us all about saffron and its ability to potentially impact our mood.
I'm Patielle Madaghjian, H&B science specialist, and this week, I'm looking at saffron. Now, if you think saffron is just something that makes your risotto expensive, think again. This tiny red thread from the crocus flower is quietly becoming one of the most exciting ingredients out there, thanks to its potential role in mood support. Sunday night dread, or that midweek slump where everything feels a bit flat? If either of those feel familiar, that's where saffron may fit in. So, what does the science say? In human trials, 30 milligrams a day of a standardized saffron extract has been associated with improvements in mood and self-reported happiness scores. And that's when compared to placebo over 8 weeks. As ever, I do like to give you the full picture. These are relatively small studies, and saffron is not a replacement for prescribed medication. But with consistent findings across multiple studies, the scientific community are pretty excited about it. So, what might be happening in the body? Saffron contains active compounds like safranal, which are thought to influence the pathways involved in mood regulation. There's also some evidence that it may help to regulate our stress response, with early research suggesting it could influence how we respond to stressful situations. Now, saffron is obviously perfect in paella, but the type we're talking about here is most commonly found in capsule form. It's standardized to around a 30 milligram dose and sometimes comes combined with magnesium or B vitamins. In a nutshell, saffron is looking like a very interesting contender for its potential effect on mood support. Until next time, science fans.
Thanks, Patielle. Saffron. You're a fan of saffron, Alex?
Yeah, so there's my psychiatrist advised a few different supplements for ADHD, and saffron being one of them. Saffron's believed to be very good for the brain, alongside, like, for example, omega-3 is another good one. So I take omega-3. I mean, if you can get it, important thing to say for supplements, like, it's supposed to supplement. So I think sometimes think for ADHD, oh, let's go and take saffron, that's going to solve it. It's like, no, like 95% of your health comes elsewhere. The idea is this is your additional benefit. So I take quite a few supplements, to be fair.
Go on, go through the list.
God, it's a list. I take, not all the time, you're supposed to cycle it, but I take ashwagandha.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of cortisol and stress.
Heard about that.
Take omega-3, good for the brain and heart. Saffron for the brain. Vitamin D, because I live in the UK.
Do you know, I started vitamin D in the winter, but I suppose maybe that's what I'm thinking. I was like, I didn't feel any different.
Well, yeah, you can't. I think you can't expect to take something and
go,
feel,
ta-da!
Yeah, I think it's a combination. So if you're someone that's affected by seasonal affective disorder, so your mood's low in the winter, which I have had in the
past,
yeah, which can be really nasty, particularly if you've got it really bad. You need to do it as a combination process. So the idea is that we don't get enough vitamin D from sunlight in the winter. Take the vitamin D. Very aptly named SAD lamps can be really useful too. So light lamps, making sure you get outside for a walk. If you can't go in the morning, go at lunchtime. Exercise is actually really helpful for it as well. People people often feel better when they kind of move in the winter, and even therapy actually for some people. If you kind of get really low and there's like an attachment to the winter and that makes you feel depressed, sometimes therapy helps. But vitamin D it's definitely something. Well, the NHS says that every adult, unless stated otherwise, should be taking vitamin D throughout the winter months. If you look at the NHS website, they do actually say that, and they're right. I mean, I would definitely advocate that someone would take vitamin D, even if nothing else. What else do I take? I take magnesium at night for sleep.
Do you sleep well?
I sleep okay. I think ADHDers don't often sleep particularly well. I sleep better. Magnesium really helps, actually. I take it for bed. That does. I really notice the difference when I do and don't take it. What else do I take? I take a multivitamin.
Taking it all, mate.
Omega-3, back to that point though, like if you ideally you can get it, there are sources you can get it from, for example, fish. But the problem is to eat like, say, you got to eat like 3 or 4 salmon steaks a week. It's really expensive, and I'm just not doing that. So that's a good reason, for example, with omega-3, why I do take it. Because realistically, I'm just not going to get it. There are probably a few others. I can't remember off the top of my head now, but yeah, I do believe there's a role for supplements. But in my head, supplements give me the 4 to 5% benefit. Like I think sometimes people take supplements that are expecting 60 to 70%.
That's me. I take it once and I expect to be 23 when I wake up.
Yeah, you got to it's got to be part of a much wider like health thing. But I think that's generally important for health anyway. Don't expect one silver bullet. Rather than thinking, right, if I just exercise, that's going to be my entire life sorted. It's like if you instead look for like, it's like with finance, the power of compounding interest, right? So if I say get 5% benefit from exercise, 5% from morning walk, 5% from sleeping better, 5% from good food, 5% from supplements, those are not those benefits are not independent of each other. They're compounding. If you sleep well, you exercise better. If you sleep well, you're better in relationships. You don't make daft decisions. You know, all of these things impact the other. So if you look at that instead and go, well, actually supplements, if that makes 3% different, actually that's great. You know, I'd say 3 to 5% benefit from supplements is a brilliant return on your investment.
Okay, I think I need to lower my expectations.
Lower the expectation. Just taking the vitamin D is not going to sort it overnight.
Oh man,
it's great, but yeah.
So, Alex, we were talking about your weight loss journey. Is weight loss harder for people with ADHD? Talking in terms of like impulsivity.
Yeah, I think especially if you throw alcohol in the mix, because you know, alcohol is very calorific anyway, but alcohol is also not very conducive with sticking to an exercise routine and eating healthily. So the impulsivity or the kind of sense of feeling better alcohol gave me then led to a lot of weight gain, I think. But even if you remove the alcohol, again, you know, and this is partly I think to do with the life expectancy stuff, being like for example, planning out your healthy meals and your nutrient-rich foods for the next few days is not something that a lot of ADHDers find easier. Some of them forget to eat and then binge eat, or often grab the dopamine-rich foods, which often are not healthy. So I think it can be, to be fair. I could easily put on quite a lot of weight again. I could see how it would happen. I have to kind of keep an eye on things, and I think that's life, isn't it? You've got to just keep yourself in check a little bit.
Right, Alex, we've come to my favourite bit. This is the stack where we do fast-paced questions. Time starts now. What's the best thing about being a doctor?
Help people.
Easy peasy. What's the most underrated exercise?
Walking. If you walk every day, try and get your 10,000 steps, you improve your heart health, your mental health, your hormonal health, positivity, creativity. Actually walking in nature has been linked with better creativity. It's just bang for your buck. It's probably one of the best.
Are you quite militant about getting the 10,000 steps in?
No, because like life is life, but I aim for that. It's nice to have a target. It's kind of arbitrary, really. It was just made as a nice round number, but I do think human beings like that little bit of, again, dopamine. So when you look and go, 10,000 steps, like it does feel good.
Tick.
It does feel nice. And that's where dopamine's good. I think that is a healthy way of doing it.
Social butterfly or hermit crab?
Hermit crab, I guess. Yeah, I like to be a small group or just on my own.
What habit would your body tell you to stop doing?
What habits? Like, well, drinking definitely. I had a good hint to stop drinking. I don't know if I have, because I feel like I'm just in a good place for stuff now. I think like sometimes if I have a really like heavy like takeaway and the next day your body's just like, and if you're lethargic and rubbish, like you do actually get told by your body, like just like don't do that. You're like, and you tired.
Crave a salad or something, don't you?
God, yeah. So like I often like forget how I feel the next day, and then 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, make the same mistake. But like you can't be perfect. That's fine.
Music or silence?
Oh, that's really difficult. Music, yeah, I love music. I think
Do you listen
it's
to
amazing.
music on your walks?
If not always, but if I do, I listen to autistic sounds, which is like classical music and quiet music. It's good for the brain. Like there's again great research that music is very healing for the brain. If you're going through struggles and stuff, listening to music can be really helpful. But actually, a tip: you should listen to music reflecting how you want to feel, not how you do feel. So if you're feeling really sad, you listen to sad music, you feel more sad.
Yes.
You were kind of like, if you're feeling a bit anxious and you want to feel calm, listen to classical music. If you're feeling a bit like flat and you want to feel energized, listen to kind of fast-paced tempo music. So kind of match what you want to feel with the music rather than how you feel.
Sometimes I'm in a good mood, but I do just want to feel a bit melancholy.
Yeah, and that's fine.
And then
that's
I'll
fine.
lean into some Careless Whisper.
If you need to
like
be reflective and you want to journal, then sometimes putting like a bit of like sad, that kind of music.
It can be so emotive, can't it? It really can.
Yeah.
Run 5K now or do a marathon next week?
5K now, a marathon next week, I'd die. Did the London last week. Did the London last year, but I'm not London ready. So yeah, no London marathon.
Never
right
again.
now.
No marathons.
I didn't say never. I think I did say never for a couple of months afterwards. I had a heat stroke. It was terrible. It was so.
no.
But it was like this year. It was so
it was hot, wasn't it?
It was hot
yes,
this
I
year
remember.
and hot last year, and I was just like, but I was just silly. I should have slowed down. So if you do the London, if you're watching do London next year, like if it's hot, decrease by at least 15 to 30 seconds per kilometre in your time. I didn't. I just went the same speed, but I've been training through the winter.
Yes.
So obviously by halfway I was like blown. Yeah, oh my, it was not good.
Never again.
Yeah. Until the next time.
What's one piece of health advice that you would give to someone that you swear by?
I think I'd say invest in your health for future you, not just the you now. Like I think often it's easy to be in the moment with it. And it's great to feel better, but in a way, you do squats so that you can stand up when you're 80 and you can go outside. You do bicep curls in the gym so that when you're 80, you can lift your grandchildren up. And so like have that sense of, and the world's very like immediate in the moment, just have that ability to look at a future investment. Like when you're 70, you'll be so glad that you look after your body. Like I've seen in A&E, I've treated, I remember one day, it was exactly the same age patient, like 80-year-old, 2 8-year-olds, completely different lifestyles. One is a lumberjack, ate healthy foods, loved exercising outdoors, and he'd fallen over and hurt himself. He went home with a minor injury, a very similar fall in someone who'd had a sedentary lifestyle, which is one of the worst things you can do, being sedentary, so not moving enough, bad lifestyle, and so on, just being frank about it. And they were admitted to the hospital for like a month or 6 weeks and were really unwell. And it's just obvious that we can see it. If you look after your body, it will look after you.
Stop, Alex, that's it. The buzzer has gone off. The questions have ended. Who knows what the time limit was? We never know. Alex, thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed it. If, like me, today's episode has made you think a bit more about your own body and how you back it, then hit subscribe and join us every Thursday wherever you get your podcasts. Get ready for more brilliant body secrets, stories and surprises on the next show. See you then.